you will get to a point that when you do have a team, you will ultimately struggle with, am I a leader right now or am I a boss right now?
I love bookkeeping. Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Alyssa Honan.
And today we have a special treat for you guys. We're going to be talking to Alyssa Lang, talking all about building relationships with your employees and what is the best way to do it. Alyssa, we've interviewed you here before. You are the workflow queen. Anybody can find you on Instagram. But something that I think you are really amazing at is creating this amazing company culture and having this amazing relationship with your employees. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yay, I'm so excited. Yeah, I absolutely pride myself in the way that we try to change the way that, companies are kind of ran and stop being the shitty boss that most bosses are. So it's like, how can we change that? So,
Yeah. So I guess my first question for you is when it comes to, we've talked about how you have this great relationship with your employees and you've built this really amazing company culture. What kind of on the flip side, what are some things you do to have boundaries with your employees to where you have a great relationship, but also maintaining the fact that you are the boss?
Yeah, I think that's always going to be like a struggle because it's like, I'm like paying my friends, like if that makes any sense. Like my employees sometimes are my friends, but at the same time, like there are days where I have to be that boss. And I think for me, the biggest tactic is not being scared to be exactly authentically who you need to be as a boss. Because I feel like a lot of people struggle because let's just say someone's a people pleaser or someone who has a lot of empathy, not to say I don't have empathy, but I also know how to understand where that line needs to be drawn. And I think that sometimes that's a really hard trait to have. So for myself, I really just try to sprinkle in ways of being like, hey, let's have this serious conversation. And I don't mind if I hear about your life and like what's happening because I'm there for you. But it's also a reminder to my team that, hey, look, this is business. And also KPIs really do help because when you bring in like black and white metrics, there is no emotion attached to it. So it's a lot easier to have harder conversations when it comes to like being the boss,
Quick follow-up question. So you're really good at having that boundary. Have you had instances where those employees that are also kind of friends with you, they don't have that boundary or they have difficulty with that? And how do you work through that?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely every one of my team members is all very unique in their own capacity. And I definitely have had experience with that on my own team where sometimes they're a lot nicer or a lot more kind of laid back in a sense, but like I could be a little bit scarier or like because I'm the boss or, everyone has this like weird feeling around their boss where it's like, I don't want to be your boss. I want to be your leader. So I think that that's something that we've had to kind of work with over here on our team is if there are leadership roles on our team, how can we all stand up as leaders together and use your unique capacity and use my unique capacity and somehow join them together?
I think that's so huge what you just said about, I don't want to be your boss. I want to be your leader. Because I think ultimately, a lot of the times when people have bad experiences with a quote unquote boss, it's because they take on more of this role of like a hall monitor rather than leading by example. And I think that you do such a great job of leading by example and encouraging people to be their unique selves, to join together so that everyone's kind of unique strong points can work together as a team. When it comes to something, let's say you're in a situation with an employee and maybe it's more of a negative situation where somebody has made a mistake or there's been kind of maybe a little squabble among team members. How do you maintain that relationship with your employee and keeping that leadership that leadership role and kind of leading by example, what you were just talking about?
Yeah, I'm going to be really, really honest. And for anybody who's pretty much listening, you will get to a point that when you do have a team, you will ultimately struggle with, am I a leader right now or am I a boss right now? And I think there's so many days where like I've had days where I feel like I am a boss, where I have to like kind of reel myself back in and say like, you're kind of demanding versus like expanding, if that makes sense. And I feel like I struggle with that a lot. And it's something that's a really high focus for myself this year, because I realized after being told by my team members that sometimes there's ways that I can be a really great leader, and then some days where I feel like a boss. And my team is very open with me and tells me those types of things, and it helps me grow. But I think for myself, it's trying to like stop and remember that like my team have emotions, but then also the other side of me is always like, but like I have to move things forward. I can't let the emotions like get me. So I think like for me, I'm still trying to find that balance. And I think it's going to be a forever challenge. I'm not going to lie.
Well, humans are just a work in progress all the time. And we're humans and we make mistakes. So I think you're ahead of the game in the fact that you're already thinking that, you still have to work on it, right? Because there's so many bad leaders that never realize that they need to work on themselves. So I think it's definitely a good indication that you're a good leader, because you see that you still do need to work on yourself, and you understand that there's days where you make mistakes. But the entire difference is that you get back on the track where, okay, today I'm going to try again. Yesterday I might have had a bad day, but now I'm back onto what my focus is.
Yeah, I think that's always just going to be really hard. We had an instance yesterday on our team meetings. We have them every single Monday. And one of our team members recently shifted kind of roles around, and she presented something that she wanted to roll out for our programs and our students to give everyone a better client experience. My brain immediately goes towards like the logistics of how much time is that going to take us to put into that? How much capacity? My brain just can't think about the other side of it, because I'm thinking about the logistics and how long it's going to take us to maintain it, build it, create it, implement it, and update it. And so for myself, like, I remember just being like, well, blah, 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 like saying something. And then I just kind of took a step back and I said, I hear you and like what you're saying. And I think that this may be a better discussion for us to go a little bit further into, to see if there's a way that we can go halfway. But before, like, I have been struggling lately with like, well, it's my way or the highway, because ultimately I call the shots. I make that pay the bills, right? But at the same time, like, it's not like there's also these other human beings who are trading their life to work for me. And so lately I've had to do a lot more inner work with taking that step back, like our team meeting yesterday, and being like, you know what, let me actually reach out to my coach, because I think this is something that we can further investigate. I just want to make sure before we do all these resources, like I needed her to understand why, but I didn't want to shoot it down. When sometimes I shoot things down because I think of the big picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I have had so many experiences. Like, I think being a little bit reactionary in nature, where I'm like, oh God, no. And I have had so much experience working with somebody over the last several years that is really that ideas person that always has these big, great ideas, really visionary things, like, or, just likes to have suggestions. And so a habit that I've been in just for years at this point is always to say, like, I love that idea. I think that would be a great conversation for us to have, on this specific date, so we can dive more into that. Always kind of accepting it and then pivoting, I think, just in any way to say no. So I just think that's so funny to hear that you kind of have had that experience as well, where it's like, my first thought is to just be reactionary. So I get that. I'm with you on that as well, where it's like,
I like that. I love that advice. I really do.
Always
I'm
say yes.
Use that from here on out, Melissa.
always
like,
say
hello?
yes is all I have to say. And it's so funny because just working through, how I'm in sales, but it's like, I always kind of I try to think, one way that I have changed, I guess, my mindset is almost like always being in sales mode in a sense when it comes to building relationships too, where I try in the sales process to find a way not to say no. And I try to do that with other people too now, because it's just, nobody wants to be told no, right? Especially when they're making themselves vulnerable. So if you can find a way to accept whatever it is that they're bringing to you and then pivot it to a different conversation, I think that's a great way. But
I'm like looking for a pen on my desk.
Oh my God!
Because I'm like,
this whole thing's recorded. If you didn't know, Alyssa.
Yeah, I definitely know. I was like, I can't wait. I can't wait till it gets released. Like, I can't. I'm going to roll it out today. It's going to be my new thing. It's going to be like, so I love that idea. Let's dive deeper. I love that.
Love that idea. And I do have a follow-up question for you. Just again, because I'm learning so much from you too, and I think that, Alyssa and I have a lot of similar ideas on how we want our company culture, but I think that we are really different at the same time. Whereas, I don't view any of my employees as friends. very, very intentionally. And I, a lot of that comes just from my past, and having experiences where that's gone wrong in different work environments. And I do see, when it's your own company, you get to create that work environment, but I still tread carefully, and I've just been burned in that. And so like one of my policies is that I'm not friends on social media with anybody that I work with. So I guess my question for you would be, what does that look like for you? And has that worked? Have there been any issues? Like, are you guys friends on social media? Do you guys, and I don't know locationally where you are, but do you do in-person things? I guess where, if any, are there boundaries for your relationship with your team? Or are you just completely open and really more of like, essentially that family?
Yeah, I think there's always a lot more openness at the beginning. Like, for example, when I had my firm, I did not create company culture. It was like, hey, I need you to do the thing, right? And so with Workflow Queen, I kind of wanted to change that up a bit because I had bad experiences with prior people like on my team who just weren't great culture fits. And I was so tired of it. And my coach was like, well, obviously, like, you can't get mad about it if you don't have the culture in the first place. So I really worked hard at Workflow Queen on that. But I think that I got really excited about infusing this type of culture that at the very beginning, it was a lot of openness, a lot of relationship, a lot of like friendship and things and stuff like that. And then eventually, like, the more that I progressed through, like, I do see my team as like an extension of like a family, like especially my work family. But right now I'm trying to figure out a balance between what is too much information and what is just enough, and what is too much relationship building and what isn't, because I want to sympathize with my team, but at the same time, like, I have a business to run, because like, this is why I'm doing this, is to help impact so many bookkeepers. I can't do that when I'm constantly sensitive to what's happening to people constantly. I think that's really hard. It's hard to balance for sure.
Today's show is brought to you by Keeper, the one app to run your bookkeeping business. Keeper helps you get faster client responses with your own custom branded QuickBooks integrated client portal. Finally, you can say goodbye to those pesky spreadsheets full of uncategorized transactions. Keeper also helps you catch those embarrassing coding errors before your clients do. And with Keeper, you can generate beautiful custom reports that your clients will absolutely love to read. To find out more, go to keeper.app. That's keeper.app. Mention I Love Bookkeeping to get 20% off your first 3 months. Again, go to keeper.app to find out more. Thank you for listening.
I think you made a really good point earlier when you talked about being more of a leader. I think one of the attributes of a good leader is being able to go within and say, okay, hey, I'm just human. I don't know everything. So when you're kind of given these situations with your employees where you're like, how do I have a great relationship but also have good boundaries? I think a great quality of a good leader is being able to learn as you go and adapt and evolve, and being able to communicate that with your employees, I think, is huge. Saying, I'm not perfect. This was the boundary before. This is the new boundary. And hey, nobody has to get their feelings hurt because you can communicate it in a correct manner. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So when it comes to your company culture, and it's so funny, I almost cringe when I hear the word company culture, because I feel like it's so boss centered. It's something that like I picture like the CEO of like Facebook saying company culture that 100% benefits the CEO.
Yes. I was just thinking of Google, which is so funny because as millennials, which I think all three of us are. So as millennials, like when we entered the workforce, like imagine what the ideal company culture was. And for literally everyone, it was Google, right? Like Google has free food, they have snacks, they have like cool open concept and desks and sleep pods and, all of these things where you're like, damn, like I want to work at Google. And then, Gen X, which is like honestly the best generation, came up behind us and they were like, that all of this is created for you to keep us at work longer. And then finally millennials were like, oh my God, you're right. We were being swindled the entire time. It doesn't matter if there's beer on tap. They want us to stay here past 5 p.m. so that we work more for free. I love Gen X because they give no shits. I'm going to be edited so much during this episode. They give no shits and they demand what they feel like they deserve and what we all deserve. And I freaking love this generation. I really do. But that's why I laugh every time I hear company culture, because there's what we have experienced as company culture. There is what company culture is now, the standard for company culture. And there's what it should be and what it could be. And that's the difference too, is like, I just laugh because every time I hear company culture, I'm like, yeah, it's like Google, right? Like whatever. It's their company culture. Their company culture is like the standard, but it's frankly bullshit based on capitalism. And it is all to benefit the company versus people like what Alyssa's doing, trying to create this company culture that is in the best benefit for everybody that is in the company and something that really should be the new standard.
Yeah. Alyssa, tell us about your personal company culture and how you've been able to center it to make everybody happy. And when I say that, I say that generally because you can't make everybody happy all the time, 24/7. But generally, how have you centered your company culture so that your employees love what they do and love where they are?
Yeah. So I'll break down we have 5 core parts of our culture. So it's efficient, which is our number one. So everything's in a certain order. So it's efficient, health is wealth, supportive, approachable and playful, and accessible. And these aren't just words on a paper. This is actually something that we quiz our team occasionally. We call them rapid fire questions. Like we'll Slack the team and be like, what's our core, piece of culture, whatever, and also we recognize each other. So every single quarter we do a form where the team fills out how they did, what the projects they worked on, if they want to do any education. And there's another piece that says nominate one of your team member who is following and living and breathing one of the aspects of cultures and show us an example of that. And that's a way that we as a team recognize it with each other. And they're not just words. We actually have definitions for them, what that means for us. For me, health is literal wealth. I cannot handle when my team is not okay, whether that's mentally or physically, or they're not feeling good, or they're feeling depressed or anxious. I know I can't control that, but I need my team to take care of themselves. And I live and breathe that every day. And I think a lot of what we do, when we try to infuse that culture, is we always go back to this. It's something that we revisit every quarter with the team as we re-go over the culture, and then we infuse it all over the place as much as we possibly can, because like you said, it's not about creating these pods where you get to take a nap, or it's not about me giving you beer, which occasionally I do send them wine and cheese boards. But I mean, I'm not forcing them to stay longer. I do encourage them with the card, go enjoy this with your husband, or go take a picnic. I want them to know that I'm doing this because I genuinely want you to feel wanted and supported here at our company,
Well, and I think you have to, and we talked about this in an earlier episode, the grass is greener where you water it. And I think that's so true for relationships with employees as well. And I think a lot of the time, a good leader recognizes that. And it sounds like you really recognize that nourishing your relationship with your employees, and not only that, but encouraging them to be their best selves really creates for happiness.
Yeah. So I would love to know a little bit more about, I guess you said it's really important to know how your employees are doing mentally or physically. How do you know that when, you are working in a remote environment?
Yeah, for us, we have weekly team meetings, which obviously people aren't just going to blare out their life problems on a team meeting, but you'd be surprised every once in a while it happens. And it typically is me on that call who's I'm a
train wreck having a mental breakdown. Hello. Yeah, that's usually me too.
And I think, but I do think I'm laughing because it's so sad, but at the same time I'm laughing because I feel in the summer. So I went through in last August, I went through a whole month and a half of just straight, anxiety ridden. I felt I was just in this deep depression, and everything was so overwhelming and powering. And I barely could show up to meetings. And it was really hard for me, but I was very transparent about what I was going through. And I was trying so hard, and my team recognized that I was seriously getting up every day and making sure to show up for them. And I think that opened up something for the team, because when they saw that I was vulnerable, my team started to be a little bit more vulnerable, and we use Slack to communicate. We're always sending like gifts and like having a good time, like making, jokes or whatever here and there. But we do a daily check-in, check-out. So during the daily check-in, that's every single day the team members check in. They say today's intent or today, like what they're going to do for today, to make sure that the team is aligned with what they should be doing. Any concerns, so that's like any roadblocks they're running into, any issues, so that way we can nip them in the butt immediately. And then the last piece is today's intention. And today's intention has nothing to do with business. And they don't have to share, but today's intention is about themselves. So like, for example, one of the big topics and talks right now is everybody wants to drink more water and move their body more. And so every day their intention is like, I'm going to go to the gym today, or I'm going to drink one extra bottle of water today. And we start to see the way that they feel. There's some things like today, I'm just like feeling super down. So I might just seem out of it, or I'm going to turn my camera off today. We can see, and I feel like I can feel even on a screen when someone's going through something. And I don't know why. It's like the weirdest thing.
You're intuitive. Not everybody is.
Yes.
Some people think it's like the weirdest thing, right? But there are some people you just have like, it's vibes. It's all vibes, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think, you talking about earlier, what you went through last July and August when you were going through a hard time. I think that's so cool that you were able to share that with your team, because in turn, you got to lead by example and be vulnerable and be open so that they feel comfortable being that way with you. Is there something that with your business ownership, is there something that you've kind of learned maybe the hard way about building relationships with employees?
I don't know. Give me like a little bit of context. Like what would be like, so I can kind of make sure I'm answering it right.
Is there something, because I always I like to ask kind of a rebuttal question to these topics so that our listeners can hear about maybe an experience that you learned from. Is there an experience, I guess I should say, with an employee that you had to learn the hard way of what not to do when it comes to building relationships with your employees?
I'm like, here we go, Melissa. We have our call today.
You both can answer.
Right. I think I definitely learned some stuff the hard way. That is 100% with prior people that I've worked with, whether that's here at Workflow Queen or also even my own firm. And then in future business relationships, I think there's always going to be not necessarily a problem person, but more of like a problem area that needs to be resolved. I think that at one point I tried to infuse too much like supportive, accessibility, like all these different things that it got to a point where like one of our team members got really cocky, like extremely cocky. And it was like, it just changed. Like she wasn't following our piece of culture, which was approachable, playful. Like it just changed. There was something that just happened. And when I recognized that, there was a lot of things that we tried to do with it, but then how we took a step back was are there ways that we can make improvements to clearly keep reinstating that? Like if you're not in alignment, if our culture does not align with who you are, I'm not going to be mad at you if you don't want to work for us. Like I need people on my team who are going to infuse it in every way. And I think that was something that was really hard for me to understand is like, I am not, even if I pay someone money, not going to be the right fit for everybody.
Yeah. That's a tough lesson to learn for sure. Melissa, you just said that you have lots of answers.
Look, I can't even.
Let's hear from you.
This is going to be another episode. Or no, this is what this needs to be. Okay. So, I have a good following of people that are very interested in hearing about, the Cancun bikini wax incident of 2022. And oh Lord. And that's going to be a conversation that we're going to have on the ground in BKX, without cameras, without recordings. That's just going to be one of those things where that's not going to be documented in this day and age. Okay. And so I think that's also where this conversation needs to take place, which is, the shit I've seen. It's like, the places you'll go. I'll try to make it rhyme like Dr. Seuss. Okay. And then, if you get me rhyming on camera about things that have happened in my business, that'll have to be something else. So I think we're going to have to have everyone sign an NDA before this conversation.
For sure. Especially when it comes to the great bikini wax in Cancun.
The story. Bikini wax of Cancun. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Stay tuned.
Good Lord.
Stay tuned for that, guys.
Well, Alyssa, I love how we have Alyssa and Melissa. I just now put that together. That is so cute. Okay.
My son loves it, by the way, because he asked me if I could do, I can't remember what happened, but I had mentioned something about Alyssa to Daniel. And then he was like, Alyssa, but that's your name. And I was like, no, my name's Melissa. And Mama works with somebody called Alyssa sometimes. And he thinks it's the coolest thing. So now every day he asks me if I get to work with the other Alyssa today, because he has no idea that we have a different name. But it's so cute. So my son asks about you all the time, Alyssa.
I love it. I just love that there's always like all these people who are like the other Alyssa, because I have another Alyssa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Well, Alyssa, we have so enjoyed you being on the podcast and hearing all about how you create an awesome company culture and how you build relationships with your employees, because you are the best at it. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, you are so welcome.
If you guys have more questions for Alyssa, or you just questions, concerns, comments, tips, we have gotten some really great, interesting tips lately, haven't we, Melissa? We have.
I don't know if I can pitch this, but hey, we're hiring.
I was just about to ask. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I forgot my lead.
No,
but
go for
you
it.
have this amazing company culture, Alyssa. Are you expanding it?
Yes, always. Both companies. So I own Workflow Queen, and I also am a partner at Magnetic Bookkeeping and Consulting. For Workflow Queen, we're always looking for amazing people to fit into our unicorn of culture here. We love to support bookkeepers and accountants. You don't have to know the numbers and do all that stuff. You just have to really love supporting people. And at Magnetic Bookkeeping and Consulting, we are looking for a client success manager, a bookkeeper, and an account manager. And you can come work with the Alyssas, because there's two of us there. And just continue to spread the culture, and now it infuse it more into the clients that we serve as well. And obviously where they can apply is workflowqueen.com. You can either fill out our form, just reach out to us and see if we're currently hiring at Magnetic Bookkeeping and Consulting. Just go ahead and shoot me an email at support@magneticbookkeeping.com, and let us know that you're interested, and we'll send you over all the things.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Yes.
If you guys want to work with Alyssa, or if you feel like you're qualified, please do, because she is
And
the
to be
best.
honest, if you don't feel like you're qualified, you still need to apply, because I have hired
Yes.
so many people that were totally qualified that didn't think that they were.
Yeah, definitely.
Do it.
And not only that, but there's also people who think that there's no way that they're going to have a lot of other competition that they can't go up against. But trust me, I like to hire for experience, and also like you're the right fit for my company. So that's huge for me.
Amazing. Well, we always love having you on the show. If you guys have any input, questions, comments, concerns, you can shoot us an email at success@ilovebookkeeping.com. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Alyssa Honan.
And thank you for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as